This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, can you all hear me? Just write down in the chat box if you all can hear me. Yeah, thank you, dear.
Welcome.
Yes, so okay, students have joined, and today we are here to discuss regarding what is the importance of the part 3 exam, how it is different from the part 2, and how to have a good approach towards your part 3, because this is entirely different from your part 1 and 2. Till now it was all the question based, like for example it was an MCQ, so it was a single best answer or your extended matching questions that you have been solving. But part 3 is more about the communication skills, the way you communicate with your role player, the way you communicate the things to your examiner, and what are the safety concerns, what are the information gathering that you're supposed to do, and your applied clinical knowledge from your part 2, all the guidelines that you have read. So how you're going to apply that in a patient friendly, in a role player friendly language, and similarly in the structured discussions. Okay, so to begin with, okay, so welcome all of you, and we are going to begin with the part 3 introductory session. And congratulations to all the candidates who have cleared the part 2 and have stepped into the final step of getting your MRCOG degree. So this is what you all have been waiting for, and it is just one step ahead, and you'll be getting your MRCOG degree. How to go ahead with this preparation? So these are all the feedbacks. Okay, so these are all the feedbacks which my students from the academy, they have all given. They have been showering with love the batches which we have been training so far, and the people who have given their exams, they have taken the course, they have given the circuits, and they're waiting for the results for all the previous batches who all they have cleared. So it's been overwhelming. From here onwards, there is no way that you're going to look back, and it's only towards getting your degree. What is the eligibility to sit for the Part 3 exam? As you all know, you have passed the Part 2 MRCOG, and now this assessment of training, it needs to be approved. So initially for the Part 2, they were telling that 4 years was required, but now that has shifted to the Part 3. So once you have completed 4 years of experience in the field of obstetrics and gynecology, you will be able to apply that for the part 3 assessment of training. So you have to get that approved first. So all the details will be put up in the RCOG website, and I will also be sending you all the details in the groups. So if you go into this website, the eligibility, everything will be put up, the assessment of training will be put up. Once that is all approved, then all the candidates who are eligible to sit for the part 3, they start getting the tokens. The first set of tokens will be sent to the priority candidates, and the priority is decided by the RCOG. And the next set of tokens will be sent to all eligible candidates for the May. So after that, there will be dates on which you have to open and book. So I'll be guiding you through all this process, how to go ahead with the booking of this exam also. Now, speaking about part 3, this is a clinical assessment of what knowledge you have, what skills you have, and what are the attitudes and the competencies. Passing of this part 3 exam, it will lead you towards the award of the membership of Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists. So this is for people who want to work in UK, as they have to get entry into the UK. Initially, they have to go and apply for the trainees, and later on, once their competency is being proved, they will be promoted to higher up. So this is very important step, and everyone who are giving part 3 exam, they are considered to be at the ST5 level. Part 3 exam, it is going to be a clinical assessment. It contains 14 tasks in a circuit, and each task is based upon the 14 modules. These modules are nothing but the teaching, core surgical skills, the post-operative care, antenatal care, maternal medicine, management of labor, management of delivery, postpartum problems, gynecological problems, subfertility, sexual and reproductive health, early pregnancy care, gynecological oncology, the urogynecology, and pelvic floor problems. Most of the time it is fixed that one station comes from one module, but there can be overlap. So you may get an overlap between antenatal maternal medicine also. Sometimes teaching session could be overlap with some other module also. So there is a possibility like that. So most of the times one station from one module each. So this is what we are expecting. So it goes like this. There are 14 stations. You have to read the instructions for 2 minutes and then perform this task for 10 minutes. So the 2 minutes instruction, when I had given in November 2019, it was the face-to-face exam. So we had outside the cubicles, we had the papers which were stuck up there. We were supposed to read that for 2 minutes, and then the bell would ring. We would go and sit in front of the role player. There was a table across which we were sitting. Behind them were the examiners or the lay examiner also. So I'll be telling what they are exactly. And we used to talk to the role player, or if it was a structured discussion, talk to the examiner. Once the 10 minutes is over, we shift to the next cubicle, read the instruction outside for 2 minutes, and then enter the cubicle next. So mine was number 3. So I started with 3, 4, 5, 6, and went back, completed 14, then 1 and 2. So my station circuit, it ended with the cubicle number 2 because I started with cubicle number 3. Similarly, the one who starts with 7 will end up with 6. One who starts with 14 will end up with 13. So it goes in that circular manner. So 2 minutes of time will be provided for reading and 10 minutes for the performance. That was during the face-to-face examination. There was no break for the 14 stations. I had to perform everything in one go. Now the things have changed a little bit. Now there is an introduction for the Osler system. Here it is online exam sitting from home, and then you're logging in. There is a debriefing about what the exam is about, and there will be a chaperone who will be looking at you and accompanying you to all the stations. After 7 stations, there is a break, and you perform the next 7. So this is going to be an online exam. So till now, if for the May batch, at least for the global candidates, it is still like an online exam, what the format that has been decided, but there are no further updates. RCOG will update again it in the website, whether it's going to be a face-to-face or online, but most probably for the global candidates, for the UK, they may plan for a face-to-face, but for the global candidate, most probably it is going to be an Osler system, that is an online. You're sitting in the comfort at your home and you're giving your exam. So what more like will you want for that? So sitting in a cozy comfort environment, and then you're going to discuss all these things, all the stations, perform them, and then getting your degree sitting right at home. There are different tasks. For example, there is a task called a simulated patient task. Here, the role player acts as your patient, and then there will be an examiner who's sitting behind and just observing how you're going to communicate with your role player, what things you're going to explain, what information you're going to gather from your role player, and what knowledge you're going to apply on her. So all these things are going to be judged by this clinical examiner. Plus, the role player will also mark you. Like, for example, the way you have communicated and explained things to her, and how you have taken the station forward. Did you address her concern? That is very important. So all those things they will mark, and in the end, like, is she willing to see you again? So all these points will be there where the role player also marks you. So this kind of a station where a role player is enacting to be a patient, she is going to simulate a patient. That's why it is called as a simulated patient task. There is a clinical examiner sitting behind and just observing. They are not going to interrupt you. They are not going to interact with you. You are supposed to interact only with your role player. The next kind of station is about simulated patient task with the lay examiner. Now, clinical examiner is a person with the background knowledge of obstetric gynecologist, and they are the examiners which are appointed by the RCOG. role player has the background knowledge of obstetrics and gynecology, whereas a lay examiner does not have the background knowledge. So they are just going to sit there and observe how nicely you're going to communicate. And these kind of lay examiners are usually sitting in the stations. Like, for example, there is an angry patient, there is a crying patient, there is a grieving patient, or you have to break the bad news that she has a cancer. So these kind of stations where the communication is very important, these lay examiners will be sitting and they are going to observe how you're going to communicate. So who all are going to judge you here? One is a clinical examiner, second is the lay examiner, and third is your role player. So three people are going to give you marks. That's why this kind of a station, which has a lay examiner, is the maximum scoring station. This kind of station, you have to make sure your communication skills are extremely well, because the way you're communicating, you're going to fetch more marks in these kind of stations. Next comes the structured discussion. Structured discussion is about the examiner who is sitting over there, and he asks you the question. It's like a viva. So it's all like how you do your routine, like for example, the master's degree, the postgraduate degrees. So you're sitting there and interacting with your examiner and they're asking you the questions, you're answering. So here there is no role player, there is no patient where you're going to interact. It is directly, there is a scenario and your examiner asks you questions and you are supposed to answer. So here only the clinical examiner is going to score you, right? So these three kind of stations will be there. The least scoring will be the clinical examiner station, which is structured discussion. There is a possibility that out of 14, 4 or maximum 5 could be structured discussion. The remaining all are going to be the simulated patient task. At least 4 will be with the lay examiner and the remaining will be without the lay examiner. So this is how the scenario will be set up. Different kinds of stations. Next is speaking about the cubicles. So as I said, we had face-to-face, we were moving from cubicle to cubicle. Here, sitting in this front of your system, this screen will just shift away. So your previous instructions, your role players, everybody will vanish once the time is out. Timer will be displayed for you. That is a big advantage, because during our time we were not supposed to even look at a watch. So we didn't try even that, because every time you had to look into the eyes of your role player and you're explaining, you're not supposed to look at your watch. But here in the online examination, there is a timer which pop-ups, and then it shows you that, okay, a few more seconds left, this is the last minute, so it shows you that. So after that, the screen will just shift away. You will not get to see your previous station examiners or role players, or even the instructions, even the writing column over there, the notepad, even that will clear off. So it is entirely the new people, the new screen which pops up. You're supposed to read that instruction. So towards the exam, there is something called as the Osler system. Those videos are there. So we'll be sharing that. You'll be more familiar how it appears. Plus, even during our sessions, we are just putting up the timers and making you people practice so that you are accurate with your timing. You know with what speed you are supposed to talk so that you finish your station in 9 minutes. Even though you have 10 minutes, please do make sure that you're covering your station in 9 minutes. You have to keep an extra time for yourself. Sometimes you may remember an extra point, or the role player eats up your time asking more questions, or taking long time to respond. So you have to keep some spare time for yourself also. Now, each of these modules which are being stated, they are assessed in context of 5 domains. Domains in the sense, these are the areas where the examiners, the role players, everybody, they are going to score you. What are these? The first one is the patient safety. This is very important. Second one is the communication with your patient and your relatives. Third is the communication with colleagues. Fourth is information gathering, and fifth is the applied clinical knowledge. Patient safety and the communication with the patient and the relatives, these two are very important. It won't be like there are 2 role players sitting in front of you. So either the patient is there, or sometimes the relative is sitting in front of you. So it's never like two people are coming and sitting and you are supposed to communicate to both of them. So it should be like either one of them. So these two domains are really important. Never compromise in any of the station on these two domains. I would suggest that none of the domains should be compromised, but these two are prime importance. Now, when it comes to a simulated patient task, or it could be plus minus lay examiner station, the domains that could be judged are the safety, communication with patient, your colleagues, information gathering, and applied clinical knowledge. When it comes to the structured discussion, the patient safety is there. Communication with the colleagues may or may not be involved. Information gathering and applied clinical knowledge will be there. So if you see, if they are going to give you a score, each of the domain will carry maximum of 2 score, which is a pass. The borderline will score 1 and 0 means fail. We are going to target for all the passing scores. We'll make sure that we are covering all the passing points in your station. So whenever you have developed a good communication skill, there is no way that you're going to get borderline or fail. Definitely you'll get 2 out of 2. I'll give you the template where you have to practice the information gathering. The complete written template. 5 times a day you need to practice it every day and be very fluent in that. If you cover up all those points, your 90% of the information gathering is complete. The remaining 10% remains what you're going to do the history of presenting illness in that particular station. So you are definitely going to get 2 out of 2. When you're involving the team of specialists who are going to care for her and mention all those people and tell that how the approach will be there. So you're going to get communication with your colleagues 2 out of 2. What remains extra is going to be your applied clinical knowledge over there. That is important. And the information gathering you have already done. Colleagues you have involved. Communication with role play you have done well. Safety points you have covered everything very nicely. So at least we are going to target that maximum 2 out of 2 we are going to get in each domain, and make sure if anything is going to get compromised, maybe plus minus in the applied clinical knowledge, but not on any other domains, because it depends. Sometimes you may or may not have read that particular applied clinical knowledge. So it all depends. Yeah, sorry for that. So it all depends on how you're going to communicate, how we are going to score nicely, and we are going to make sure that you are going to get 2 out of 2 in all the domains. Applied clinical knowledge, you have to keep it revised, and we'll be providing all the materials also, so that a good hold is obtained on the applied clinical knowledge also. Coming to information gathering. So here you have to introduce yourself. For example, it's a simulated patient task. And if my name is Dr. Rashmi Patil, I would say, tell that simulated patient task, I would say, hello, I'm Dr. Patil, one of the doctors in the antenatal clinic today, one of the doctors in the gynecology clinic today. So may I confirm your name, age, and date of birth, please? And then my role play will introduce herself, and I can ask her, like, how would you like me to call you? I am giving her the authority to tell me that what she would like to be called as. So she would say like Kelly or something. Then I would say, okay, fine. Perfect, Kelly. I understand that you're here today because you wanted to discuss about so and so. Is that correct? And thank you for confirming this. So I asked her the reason. I confirmed that. The next in what I'm going to put up is an agenda. So you are going to meet her for the first time. So you want to know more about her, right? So when we are doing the information gathering, we can say that since we are meeting for the first time today, is it okay if I ask you a few more questions to know more about you? And if required, you may have to examine if it was a face-to-face, but it is an online exam, you will not be offering the examination. Then if it is required, then maybe you have to run some tests and discuss regarding the, look at this sentence, it is going to be evidence-based management options that are going to be available, right? How we are using these sentences, we are going to put the evidence inside her management option, right? We are not practicing something else. We are practicing only what the evidence suggests. And together, me and you together, we are going to arrive at an evidence-based or mutually agreed safe management plan that should be acceptable to her. It should not be like you are imposing your decision on her, your management plan on her. You are going to tell her. You are not going to say, okay, you're having a scarred uterus, so you have to undergo an elective repeat cesarean section. Maybe she wants VBAC. You are not going to impose your decision. You are going to discuss what the evidence suggests, tell her the pros and cons, give her the authority to decide what she wants. So you can say like this, and then how does this sound? So this is something called as an agenda. You can keep it short, just 2 or 3 crisp sentences. Now, when it comes to what you're going to do later on in the station, for example, there are certain leaflets which are released by the RCOG. These are the PDFs. These are nothing but they are patient-friendly language where the condition is explained. It could be diabetes, it could be obstetric anal sphincter injury. So that condition is being explained in the patient-friendly language. These are freely available in the website, and I have put up all in the groups also. So what you have to supposed to do is to get used to how to communicate with your patient without using medical jargons. The patient information leaflets have to be read regarding that particular topic. So all the leaflets and all will be shared. They are already there in the group. If anybody wants also, we'll be sharing those again in the course groups. So you have to just look into them, read them. Some of the leaflets may not be there in the RCOG, but what I used to do is I used to just type NHS. So if I want something information, I used to put the title and I would to put like NHS. If I want spina bifida, NHS. I want echogenic bowel, NHS. So there are lots of NHS hospitals which release their own information leaflets. So I used to compile all of them together and make stations for myself. So which I'll be providing for y'all in the course. So this approach about how to go ahead with the station, how to explain the patient in her own language. And most of the time, all the management options also will be explained nicely over there. So this is going to be there, and you can use this leaflets as a base about how you're going to communicate with her. So once this is done, what we can usually do is after the end of consultation, for example, it's an outpatient department or something, and you have spoken to her about everything. So in the end, you want to give her some more information. You may not be able to cover everything in 10 minutes. So you'll give her some leaflets about what you have discussed. So she can have a further read. She can discuss with the family and friends. And if she wants to come back with what her decision is, you can also fix an appointment with a consultant or any other specialist if it is required. And some stations may require providing an emergency number to them. For example, you are doing an ectopic medical management, but you are afraid that she may end up having a rupture or she may have an acute abdomen. So she has to have some emergency numbers. So in that way, you're giving some 24/7 hospital contact numbers. There are certain support groups. Support groups are association who have patients or their children or something with a similar condition. For example, Down Syndrome Association is there. There, the mothers, the parents, the caretakers, everybody of these Down syndrome babies, they are there in that association. They share their experience. They discuss about how to bring up a child. They support each other. So all these things, these are called as support groups. So you can make the role player get attached to the relevant support group. So this can be offered in the end. The information leaflets, the support groups, the 24/7 numbers, further appointment with consultants or something. This can be offered in the end of your station, or this can be told in the beginning itself if you want. Like for example, once you have done with your agenda fixing everything, in the end, I'll be giving you some information leaflets and hospital contact numbers, support groups, and fix another appointment with consultant if required. This will hardly take 5 to 6 seconds. I always practiced telling this in my exam because I was thinking maybe in the end I may not get time to finish my station, but that was not the thing. I was able to cover like most of the stations. But what I always felt was maybe these 5 seconds if I tell, and if the examiner has these things in his box, so he's going to tick them. That okay, she mentioned about leaflets and other things. So it's going to be only 5 seconds. If it is going more than that, then please do not include this in your the general information gathering. You can keep it in the end. So the speed and the tone, everything I will teach you all how to practice with that. Next one is going to be an open-ended question. So you are going to ask her such a question that she comes out with all the information that she has. So Kelly, can you tell me more about your concerns? This is such an open-ended question that whatever the role player instructions was there, she's going to tell you out. And you can say that I'm here today to address your concern to best of my capabilities. So take a detailed history about her complaints. She has come with pain. You start asking about the pain, the nature of the pain, where is the site, how is it traveling, increasing factors which decrease the pain, how is the pain score. So all these the HOPI towards that complaint you're asking. Apart from this, just ask, is there anything else that you want me to address? So if the role player has some other concerns left out, they will tell you that also. Once you're done with this part, you are going to take a very quick information gathering in terms of the menstrual history. There you're going to just ask her, can you tell me more about your periods? And when did you have last one? If in case she had previously, like it has been more than 3+ weeks now, in case if she skips a cycle, you're going to offer her the pregnancy test accordingly. Obstetric history, if you ask her, do you have children? In that situation, she may not have, but she must have had an abortion. She must have had a ectopic, a miscarriage, something, but she may not be having children. So not to ask such question. What you can ask is, have you been pregnant before? So she will tell about her pregnancy. She will not tell about her children. So have you been pregnant before? Can you tell me more about your pregnancy? In that situation, she'll come up with all the information about her previous pregnancies. So choose your questions such that your answers, whatever you're getting, it is complete. You're not asking, so how many children do you have? Children, I don't have any children, doctor. Because maybe she had ectopic, she must have had a miscarriage. So have you been pregnant before? Yes, doctor, I had been pregnant twice. One was a miscarriage, the other one was an ectopic. So she will tell like that. And can you tell me more about them? Then she will tell 2-3 sentences extra. Contraception, are you using any contraception? Then regarding what you're supposed to explain. The importance of this is, if it was an unplanned pregnancy, then you have to provide her a reliable contraception towards the end of a pregnancy. After that, later on, once she is done with the pregnancy. Condoms are very important contraception, though it may not prevent pregnancy like 100%, but it is useful in preventing sexually shared infection. So, can you all just mute your mic, dears? Okay, thank you. So, what you are supposed to say if she's using condoms, appreciate and tell her that yes, it is a important method to prevent the sexually shared infection. Now, STI screenings, this is important, the sexually transmitted infections and all. You can just say, part of my job is to assess your sexual health and have you been treated for any sexually shared infections in the past? So nothing to signpost or say something. This is a very common question. So you can just ask regarding this, or you can keep it simple and ask her, like, have you or your partner been treated for sexually shared infection in the past? That should be sufficient. NHS has shifted the screening from the smears to the HPV. So you are not going to tell cervical smear, you are going to tell it as cervical screening. Have you undergone cervical screening? Were they normal? So more than 25+ years, when she's coming, you can ask this question. Less than 25+, you can ask whether she has taken HPV vaccination. That is justifiable. Medical history, when you're asking, keep it short. Do you visit your GP regularly for any other conditions, any medication that you're on? Allergies, are you allergic to any medications, metals, or substances? Sometimes latex is also important over there. Surgical history, have you undergone any surgeries on your tummy or down below? You're not going to tell abdomen. You're not going to tell vagina, perineum, nothing. So it is down below. It is the tummy. So these kind of patient-friendly words and sentences you're supposed to use. So even in the RCOG website, there are medical terms which are being explained in the patient-friendly language. Everything is in the patient corner. So you have to keep practicing. Plus, I'll be telling all those things, and there are a lot of recordings, templates, everything available, which tells you about how to choose the sentences also and how to explain things in a patient-friendly language. In the past history, where, like, for example, you can just ask her, were you admitted or treated prior in, like, hospitalized any time or for any other major problem? So you have to ask, maybe like for uncontrolled diabetes or hypertension, or it could be some other medical problem. So that could be there. So what you're supposed to do is, okay. So what you're supposed to do is, you are just asking her, were you admitted or treated prior in the hospital? Few questions, for example, smoking, alcohol, recreational drugs. So you need to know them because you may have to ask her to consider to stop them. Because smoking again, preoperatively or for a general health, pregnancy. So there is no safe limit that one cigarette is allowed, then 1 unit of alcohol is allowed, nothing like that. It has to be stopped in the pregnancy. That is what we are going to tell them. So whether to stop or no, it is her decision, but the safety limit is not there. So we are going to tell her, have you considered to stop smoking? Because you can put in touch with the NHS Stop Smoking services for her. So what question you need to ask? You can just say a few personal questions. Do you smoke, take alcohol, or take any recreational drugs? So these are very simple questions. Most of them in the UK, these questions are acceptable. So no need to do any signposting or something. Or you can just say like few questions on your social life choices, and then you can ask about the smoking, alcohol, any drugs for fun, something like that. So it is going to be a simple question. Family history, any family history of concern. So would you like to share about? For example, there could be some genetic condition that run in the family. There could be some DVT risks. So clots in the legs or lungs, any high sugars, high pressures, any history of cancers in the family. All these things are family history. So according to the station, you're going to ask the question. Social history is like, what do you do for a living? Whom do you live with? How is the support at home? Is your partner supportive? One of the question you can ask. Are you safe and happy with him? Because we have to rule out domestic violence. So, what do you do for a living? Whom do you live with? She'll tell, this is my partner. Then, are you safe and happy with him? Then she'll come up and tell the answer. So, we have to rule out domestic violence stations, especially in like the people with the complex social factors and pregnant ladies. And they could be something like chronic pelvic pain, vague, like persistent vaginal discharge, and she's coming on and off again and again. They could be a hidden agenda of a domestic violence station also. So these questions are very important. About the mental health, this is very important question. Have you felt down, depressed, or anxious in the past few weeks? So you're going to assess her mental health. Or you can just ask her, how have you been feeling lately? Blood group, are you aware of your blood group? Any reservation for blood transfusion if need arises? This is because you want to rule out Jehovah's Witness. These are the set of people who do not accept the blood and the blood products transfusion. So you are supposed to ask them, is there any reservation for blood transfusion if required or if need arises? It's not like 100% they will require. About the BMI, the RCOG examiners, the role players, these have been instructed that if somebody points out to them that they are on the thicker side, then they get really angry. So what you can do with this and smartly deal with this approach. You're going to ask her like, are you aware about your weight to height ratio? This is how it is called. The weight and the height ratio is the BMI, right? So are you aware of your weight to height ratio? She will tell something like 36, 38, something. Is it of a concern to you? She'll tell, no, doctor, I've never been bothered by my weight. Then do not discuss anything at this moment. when you're speaking about the management, I will teach you how to deal with such questions and how to approach. So you're going to tell her about the weight loss management without hurting her emotions. So you're going to just tell her that how it is going to be beneficial to women who have had lost some pounds and how it helped in getting some, like for example, avoiding complications, preventing the clots risk, all these things which are beneficial for the women who have lost some pounds. You give example of other women, and then you're going to ask her like, would you like to consider? So it's not hurting her emotions that time. So you gave how it helped other women when they lost some pounds. So would you like to consider? So it is her choice again. Once she says 36, you're not saying, okay, I'll put you to the dietitian and the slim clubs and the nutrition specialist, and I want you to lose weight. You are not going to command her. You are not going to order her that you're supposed to lose your weight. So these kind of stations are very important where the communication matters. And I'll teach you how to handle such situations. Once she has given you all the information, you just thank her. Okay, thank you for sharing all the information. Summarizing the task may or may not be applicable. Frankly speaking, I never summarized in my exam because I thought I have to save some seconds. So I didn't summarize, and that was fine because I've cleared the exam. It means like summarization is not the important thing in the information gathering also. If you have time, you can summarize. If not, then you can skip this point. Is there anything else you want to add and you feel that is important for me to know? So, or I have missed asking you. So, some important key points the role player may be having, and only after probing that question, they would come out with that. In the end, if you have felt that, okay, maybe something is missing and she wanted to give the information, you ask her, is there anything else that you want to add and that you feel that is important for me to know? So she will tell you, okay, doctor, I also wanted you to address this part of my concern. She'll come and tell you. Keep this question open to her. Then in the end, you can tell her, okay, Kelly, your safety is the utmost priority. Based on the information that I've gathered, I'm going to offer you all the evidence-based management option. And together we can arrive at a mutually agreed safe management plan, which is acceptable to you. So how does this sound, Kelly? She'll tell, fine, doctor. Then you start discussing the station further. This is all about the information gathering domain. And I want all of you to be perfect in that. This entire thing which I have discussed till now, this should get over within 2 minutes. Because in the first 5 minutes, I always tell my students to divide their time. In the when you have a 10 minutes station, keep it short as 9. The first 5 minutes is regarding your introduction, the information gathering, some concerns you're asking, everything. By the 5th minute, you are going to start off with the management plans. Only then you will be covering everything. By the 9th minute, there are something called as the clinical governance points that I'll be teaching you all. So your 9th minute, all the clinical governance points should be ringing in your ears, and you should remember all those points and speak in front because they are very important. So your management, your time management should be very, very clear that I'm going to finish off my information gathering in 2 minutes. And that is going to happen only when you practice 5 times a day. No fumbling in any of these sentences. It has to be crisp, it has to be quick, and the tone of the voice should be correct. You're not going to just speak and finish off your sentences. You should connect with your role player. Okay? This is about the information gathering. In the end, usually the sentence which I would say is, I've given you a lot of information today. So this is the information leaflet, which what we have discussed today, and I'll offer you some support groups also. Fix another appointment with consultant. So if this is applicable, and there are some emergency contact numbers, if any queries you have, I'm happy to clear them for you. And me and my team of doctors, we are there to help and support you in this. So you are going to give her some assurance. So this is more commonly like somewhere where the OPD patients are there. Every module I will teach about how to go ahead. So each module has the template of its own. How the approach should be there for each module, there's a different template. So all those templates will be discussed in the live session. So every module has a particular template that if you apply to that particular module, There is no way that you are not going to clear the station. You have to follow the module and you'll be clearing that station completely. Next domain is communication with the patient and relative. This is very important because it is how you're going to be judged. Like the basic part 3 is about the communication with your role player, how you're going to behave with your patients. A very important domain. Introduce yourself. You should know where you are. As I said, antenatal clinic, postnatal ward, postoperative ward, gynecology clinic, fertility clinic. So I should know where am I. Second thing, know why the role player is here. What is her concern? They would have written it in the sheets outside. So what is her concern? Then you are going to explain why you are there. I am here to discuss all these things. She must have had a bowel perforation. So you're going to discuss because she's very angry now. The care that she has received in this hospital is not matching with her expectation. She's too angry. And then you are going to explain her about what has happened and how to take things forward from there. So that's why you're there. So you are going to explain all these things stepwise. The voice tone, I want all of you to practice it from day one itself. The voice tone should be soothing. It should be not too harsh, not too loud. You have to make sure you're connecting with your role player. And it comes like whenever we are talking in the outpatient department, definitely we do it in and out at our workplace. But when it comes to those 10 minutes and you're performing an examination, you forget that the person sitting in front of you is supposed to be a patient or a role player. You're going to explain things. So keeping in mind only examination will not work. You have to feel that exam is real and how you would have dealt with this patient if she would have come in your outpatient department. A very simple examination, this question or something which would come in the polycystic ovarian case. So my role player when I was taking live sessions, so I was acting as a role player. The candidate asked me that, okay, when did you get your last menses? I said it was 2 months ago. And I'm planning for the pregnancy, doctor, and it's not happening. So the station was polycystic ovary and infertility. So it was by default taken for granted that, okay, it is polycystic ovary, so 2 months amenorrhea acceptable. But at the same time, I am planning for the pregnancy. I'm having unprotected intercourse, planning for the pregnancy. So why not offer a urine pregnancy test? That was missed. But during our workplace, the working hours, the outpatient department, simultaneously, like immediately we'll say, okay, so last menstrual period was 2 months back. Okay, just get a pregnancy test done. Just in case we'll see if there is a possibility of pregnancy, we'll take things forward. Immediately we do that. But why not in your exam? Most of the candidates, they fail to ask the pregnancy test question there. Because I would ask them, like, okay, if this patient was your outpatient department, what we would do? We would offer you urine pregnancy test. Then why not now? Just because it is exam that is going on, don't take the station only as a PCO and infertility. She's trying there, right? So you are supposed to offer a urine pregnancy test when she has missed her cycle. So keep yourself, connect to your role player. Imagine that this is a real life scenario which is happening and you're explaining things to her. It's going to be natural and you're going to clear your exam very nicely. The way you communicate, everything is going to be natural there. You don't have to enact and show. So keep yourself simple, keep yourself real. The sentences, whatever you're using, it should be all like natural over there. I will teach you like how to explain everything. The voice tone is very important, which I always tell my candidates, because half of the things will get communicated very easily when you have a soft tone. It shouldn't be low, it shouldn't be loud, and it shouldn't be slow. So I can say that, okay, Kelly, I understand that you're here today because you wanted to discuss about your pregnancy. It is somewhere where I'm sounding very straight, direct, and harsh. But if I say, okay, Kelly, I understand that you're here today because you wanted to discuss regarding your pregnancy. Here, my voice tone is softened, but my speed is same. as my first sentence. So this is how you're going to modulate your voice tone. You're not going to be loud. You're not going to be very harsh and straight. You're going to be soft and you're going to communicate it effectively to your role player. Practice voice tone every day. If you feel that your voice tone is not matching to the MRCOG Part 3 standards, I make my students practice their tone again and again. I'm like, no, lower your voice tone. One more tone, you have to lower it. Lower the voice tone again. And yes, they have cleared the exam with good communication skills. So this voice tone modulation is very important. What you can do, you can record your voice and listen to it and just see, do you feel good about it? How your patients would have felt. So connecting with the voice tone is very important. All the Part 3 candidates, make sure that you're connecting with your role player. Signposting. Signposting means something that you're giving a warning shot and then you're going to give some difficult news or a bad news. So something like, I can see that you're alone today. Do you want somebody to be with you? Because I'm going to give you a lot of information. There are some concerns in the reports. So in this way, take some pause, take a break, and let her digest that news. So I'll be teaching all these kind of breaking bad news stations, the negotiation stations where, for example, she's a previous cesarean, she wants home birth, but we are asking her to come to hospital. So we are trying to negotiate things between us. She has a cancer and I'm going to break the bad news to her. The person has azoospermia because of steroids. We are going to break that difficult news for them. So these kind of stations are very important where again the lay examiner is going to be sitting. Explain the condition properly. Arrive at a mutually agreed safe management plan. So make the role player decide what she wants. They could be angry patients, they could be sad, they could be upset role players. So we should make sure that we are handling them correctly. And I'll teach you all those points and the lines and how to speak and how to make sure that your role players are happy. Listen to them carefully. Whenever they are telling, don't just rush because you see that the clock is ticking and you don't have much time and you're just rushing with those stations. So do not do that. Listen to them. Maybe somewhere they're going to give you certain very important information which is important for you to clear that station. Listen to them. Don't cut their sentences. They are not going to speak for 2-3 minutes together. They have to stop somewhere. So probably by after speaking for some 10 seconds, 15 seconds, they will stop definitely. Because they are supposed to stop. They have to give you some chance. At the same time, some role players in certain exam in the previous days, some were going on speaking. So maybe they are instructed to do so. You never know. So if you stop and cut their sentences in between, probably they'll not mark you good in your exam. So listen to them and then ask her, okay, do you want me to address this concern? She'll tell yes, then address that concern. Now, other important points is like debrief. Debrief is explaining the condition to the role player. It could be some injury, as I said. It could be the bowel perforation accidentally, which has happened after suction evacuation of the uterus. So you're going to explain all the condition to her. Debrief her, debrief family members, debrief the team who was involved in the operation or something. Duty of candor, apologize. So I'm sorry that you have been through all this. You're going to apologize for what she is in that situation. That is important. Avoid medical jargons and abbreviations, like for example, polycystic ovary, PCO. We are telling she may not know what is PCO. So mention that there's a condition called as polycystic ovary. There is a condition. We'll never say anything. Even diabetes will not say disease. Hypertension will not tell disease. So we are going to tell that as condition. Once you're explaining things, make sure you're giving the information in small bits, like in chunks, and check understanding in between. Am I clear so far? Any questions? So if she has any questions, she will tell you. About the body language, how we are going to do. You can just nod the head. Do not move your hands much. From the beginning itself, make it a habit. You're not going to move your hands, look that side, this side, and then you're going to look straight into your role player, explain her the things. Keep calm, do not be shaky, do not move your hands, do not nod too much, do not show exaggerated symptom like sentences, great or something terrible. Those words should not be used, never use them. So keep it very simple. Just nod your head and then just be straight, sitting straight, looking into her eyes. Keep some people like they have the tendency unknowingly their hands are moving in the air and they are showing some actions and some images they are trying to show. So not to do any such things. Just be calm, simple, and explain your things. Once you have done with all this, let the role player make the decision. A good supportive ending should be there. So, for example, she's in the postnatal ward. You have discussed all the things about postmortem consent. She must be depressed or sad. So, you have offered a counselor for her. Then you're there. You can just say, Kelly, you can decide whether you want to go ahead with this postmortem examination or no. Take some time. I'm giving you certain leaflets regarding what we have discussed. I'm here taking care of other patients. I'll come back in a while and I'll talk to you again. So, this kind of an ending where you're not just telling thank you for your time and you're leaving the station. You're telling her that I'm there with you. I'll come back in a while. So till that time, just discuss this thing with your partner and then we'll get to know. Okay? That way you're going to do. Sakina, not to say this sounds, no dear, great. I would say that never use any superlative words, please. Keep it very simple. Part 3 is not like, fancy things which you're using. Great, such superlatives, please do not use. Whenever she says something, what you can say, okay, that's it. Okay, not to use any such words. Just nod your head, say, okay, that should be fine. Don't use great. Don't use you must have had a terrible experience. She is going to feel more sick when you say like that. I'm like, oh my God, my doctor said that I had a terrible experience. So never say like that. This must be terrible for you. This is a horrible news. I'm sorry to see you in a horrible state. Such words should never come in part 3. Keep it very simple. I'm so sorry to see you in this situation. That's it. So whenever she says something, okay, all these things you are supposed to say. Keep it very simple. Patient information leaflets, as I said, there are a lot of leaflets, so one of them you can offer to her. Support groups, you may or may not remember the names, but at least if you're going to tell that I can offer you support groups in the end, that should be sufficient, yes. Communication with a colleague, this is a very important one. How you're going to involve a team of specialists. Okay, multidisciplinary team it is called as. So your care will be under team of specialists called as a multidisciplinary team. This will consist of 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Who are they? Consultant, specialist nurse, a counselor for help and support. These three are the common people. Which are other people? The baby doctor, the pain doctor or the sleep doctor, what we call anesthetist, the blood doctor, hematologist, so kidney doctor, heart doctor. These are the terms where you're going to explain your role player. You're not using the nephrologist will come, the hematologist will come. Don't use such words. So she doesn't know what is a hematologist. If you say blood doctor, she'll understand. She doesn't know who is a pediatrician. You say baby doctor, she'll understand. So keep it simple again. And remember, you are ST5. You, like, we may be consultants in our own place. We are handling all the complications. We are doing all the obstetric hysterectomy, the rupture uterus we are managing all the postpartum hemorrhage efficiently. We are doing all difficult cesareans. We are doing laparoscopy in and out. We are doing all IVFs. But when we come to part 3 exam, we are ST5. We are not supposed to make certain decisions on our own. Even changing a simple drug, it may be started by the specialist. For example, the patient is on sodium valproate. It may be the only drug that her condition is settled, her epilepsy is controlled. You are not supposed to stop it without consulting her doctor, her specialist. What you can tell her is counsel her immediately, like as soon as possible. We are going to fix an appointment. If she's pregnant already, then they have to consider whether it has to be changed, because if that is the only medication if she is controlled on, or she can be shifted to a baby safe medication. So you are not going to stop. We usually do all these things in our practice, but in exam we are ST5. We will refer her to the specialist, let them take a call. Okay, you're seeing a bladder injury, you're going to inform the consultant immediately, alert the theater that maybe some extra instruments may be required. Then if the consultant feels that urologist is required, they'll alert him also. Everybody will pool in. We may be doing the bladder injury at our place, repairing everything, but in exam we are ST5. We may be like 24-year-old, we may be 55-year-old, but we are ST5. Always remember that. Involve the seniors, involve the specialist. This is a very important safety point. It is a very important communication with the colleague point. Whenever we are discussing with the examiner, we start the structured discussion in the format of an SBAR tool. This is nothing but what is the situation, what is the background thing that we know about the case, how is our assessment and our findings, and what things we are going to recommend. This is the SBAR format. Whenever we are discussing things, it should go in this format. Next one is the referrals. So referrals are like the MDT approach, where her cancer has to be treated. So we are referring her to the MDT team. They are going to sit together and decide. There will be oncologists, there will be radiologists, the GP. GP is the person who is the primary care provider for her. All those people, the MDT approach, they're going to sit together, they decide some management plan, and then they send. There are GTN centers where you refer the patient for the follow-up. So these referrals are important, where you connect the patient for ongoing care. So in the station, we'll be teaching you how to do the referrals, how to connect people. So this is all about your communication with your colleagues. There are certain teaching stations where the junior comes. Junior is your colleague. So you have to teach him or her. We used to practice all drawing things. I usually do that in my outpatient department. Even for the patient, I just simply draw something and I show them that this is there. So I had that practice of drawing things and explaining. Even for the juniors, anything which I was teaching, I always did that. So for me, it was nothing different when I came to part 3. So it was because it was face to face, I was able to pick up a pencil and the paper and draw things and explain the episiotomy to the UK examiner who was sitting as a junior in front of me. So I was showing all these things. There are certain stations where you have to demonstrate skill. For example, mannequin will be kept, you have to do the breech, or you have to do the shoulder dystocia, or you have to apply forceps, vacuum. So these are skill demonstrations. In online exam, you may not get these things. But there's a breech teaching station, but there was no mannequin. So there was episiotomy station, but there was no pencil and paper given. So verbally you had to tell. There is no choice. What you can do is you can share images later on. You can share some study materials later on, which they can go through. The authentic RCOG sources, basic practical skill course, other things, strategy materials are there. So many things you can share. So the way you communicate with your junior, involve the junior. So I'll be teaching all those things in the teaching modules also. How to go ahead with communicating with the junior, ruling out bullying. There is a template which has been kept ready for you all, just you have to read and mug it up. So that kind of the preparation we're going to provide you. So just look at that, prepare, read up the topic, and then you have to perform. Listen to the task, and then you have to perform. What about the study partners over there? So you can just say, okay, I can help you out with writing discharge summaries, or I can help you out with something. So you offer being teaching partner or a study partner there, and you explain that, okay, next time when there is a patient of something like episiotomy, I will involve you and I'll be showing you how it is done or something like that. You can also come over when you're free. So I'll teach you. You're going to involve case-based discussion when there is something like problematic thing has happened. You want to discuss that case with the entire team. OSATs, like you all know, so in this there is a summative OSAT, formative OSAT. So my teaching station, it had the role player was asking me, the examiner, he was asking me to sign the summative OSAT when in real he was doing everything wrong. So we cannot mark them off their competency that time. So the formatives that time he hadn't brought anything. Then he was asking regarding the summatives. So there are teaching stations where we will tell you how to deal with such questions also. Patient safety is the next point. So start from the beginning, confirm the name, age, date of birth, sometimes the NHS number over there. Check the details on the report. All these data are entered correctly. Rule out allergies the patient has. Jehovah's Witness is important. Assessing the mental capacity like Fraser Gillick competency. Then involving the child safeguarding in assaults. LMP, the last menstrual period, and offering the pregnancy test, rule out the pregnancy. Examination in presence of chaperone with the consent. Then it could be like the consent could be either verbal or it could be a written consent. So depending upon the scenarios, you're going to offer the verbal or the written consent. For example, there are stations where episiotomies are there. So a swab count is important. Okay. So these are a few of the safety points and all which I have mentioned. There are a lot of safety points. Referring the patient to the gum clinic when you're suspecting the STIs, or the partner you're suspecting that she has STI, and then you're referring them. These are very important. And then call for help involving the consultant. So do not try to handle everything alone. Please involve the consultant. Please call for help. So this is really important. Next will be the labor ward prioritization, the famous D labor ward prioritization, which has been coming repeatedly in all the exams and all the days. So we'll be teaching you all the key points where you have to concentrate and how best you're going to perform your labor ward prioritization. Then there is gynae ward prioritization. So teaching all the important points in that also. The medications dosages, for example, herpes, 400 milligrams 3 times a day for 5 days. So these are the important dosages that you should remember. Not every single medicine or the drugs, but key points which you should remember. Suitable contraception. You're not going to offer intrauterine copper device for a molar pregnancy evacuation. So make sure you're offering the suitable contraception for her. Enhanced recovery program, as you all must have been knowing in your part 2. So this is something where we optimize the patient's health before they undergo the elective procedures, whether this has been applied or not. The surgical safety checklist, which we all know whether this has been followed or not. Maintaining confidentiality details, not discussing the reports of one partner in front of the other. So all these things are confidentiality. These are very important safety points. Debriefing her about all the conditions, duty of candor, then documenting everything in the notes, your discussion, what you did. DVT risk assessment. The DETICS is nothing but the incident reporting. Writing a proper detailed discharge summary. Involving the risk management team whenever there is something which has gone wrong and you want that incident to be investigated. Referring patient to the PALS. So patient advisory license service is there where they can raise their individual concern and lodge a complaint if the patient wants. This is very important. About the applied clinical knowledge, yes, all of you, like the recently passed out, so you must have read through all the guidelines, everything. So just have to brush up with the guidelines. If you have cleared it prior also, that is still fine. Just keep reading 1 or 2 guidelines every day and keep refreshing with the algorithms at least. That is really important. Plus these summaries and all we're going to add up in all the websites, so you can just have a look at these summaries and you can quickly revise, and lots of snippets are also being shared, so you have to just go through those snippets too. So the tables algorithms are very important. Have a good strong base and a strong knowledge. The history, investigations. In that way, you need to approach to the station. Once you have done with the history, you have to offer investigations wherever required. What will be the investigation? I always made up a skeleton in my mind. It's like the blood, the urine, the imaging. In that order, you are going. So, blood investigations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, for example, full blood count to look at the strength of your hemoglobin or to look at your blood levels to rule out infections. Look at your liver and the kidney functions to see how they are working. So I am justifying my investigation. Your urine test to rule out infection, a scan to rule out fibroids, or I am justifying whatever I'm saying, I am justifying because I want to rule out this, because I want to rule out that. Whenever you tell an investigation or something, you are going to justify that. Have a structured approach and put up a skeleton for the management also. Explain everything. Let the role player make the informed choice that what management she wants to go ahead. This should be evidence-based plan that you're going to discuss with her, and that should be acceptable to the role player. You're not going to tell you should have cesarean section. It is her choice. You tell her, okay, you wanted to have a vaginal delivery, fine. This is the pros, this is the cons. This is the vaginal delivery pros and cons. This is a repeat cesarean pros and cons. And what she wanted first, I will discuss that first. If she said that, okay, doctor, I want to have a vaginal birth or I want to have a home birth, I'll start discussing about home birth first. I'll appreciate that what all good points the home birth has. Then I'll tell all the whatever the negative effects or whatever the disadvantages of a home birth could be. Then I will tell her regarding what the advantages of hospital birth has, plus what the disadvantages are there. And once she knows everything, once she's informed about everything, she will make an informed choice. So this approach I'll be teaching what she wants, how to go ahead with that first, and then how to put your terms and let her decide. So I'll teach you all those things in the stations. So I used to put up a skeleton like this, like whenever a management plan is there in my mind, it would be like, okay, management. So that should be my clinical management, my clinical governance. So these 2 points I used to always think. Next could be the expectant, the conservative, or the lifestyle changes, because it could be like a conservative treatment, a miscarriage. She just wants to wait and see how it goes. A lifestyle changes that I could modify and put forward for her. Next one will be the medical line of management. Next one will be the surgical line of management. In surgical line, is there something like a conservative surgery that I can offer to her? Or is it something like a definitive surgery I'm going to offer to her? This is my management plan for all my stations. This chart, I used to always have it in my mind. Okay, by 9th minute, I used to focus on the clinical governance. Between 5 to 9 minutes, I used to speak about all these things. For example, she has come for the something like she wanted the expectant management for a missed miscarriage. Then I used to tell her, okay, right now, like for example, any woman who has a missed miscarriage, we generally have 3 options, like just wait and watch and allow the nature to take its course. Then there is something called as medicines which we can give, and there is a other option where the pregnancy can be sucked out from the womb. So is there anything specific that you want to know about? She will tell, doctor, I don't want surgeries. Please give me medicines. So she herself cut down my station. She herself cut down my management. She saved my time. So this is how I'm going to teach you how to cut short your station by asking a specific question to the role player. This approach you should have for all your stations. Let her tell you her choice. For example, it could be prolapse, but she doesn't want surgery. So there is something called lifestyle changes which we do. There is something supportive, the exercises and the pessaries, and there are some surgeries which we can offer. Is there something that you want me to discuss first? She said, I don't want surgeries, doctor, at any cost. You said something pessary. I want to know more about pessary. Can you tell me? This is how my role player, She cut down my station in my exam because I asked her, like, what is your choice? She told, okay, I don't want to hear about all these things. You tell me only this. You come to the point. You discuss. You save your time. This is how you're going to perform in your exam. And this is a very smart approach how you're going to finish your station in time. So now that you know your domains, you have to start the preparation. How to go ahead with that? There is a station which you have to perform. You know what the gist of the station is. Ask the information, the history of presenting illness, the information gathering, signpost wherever it is required. Summarizing may or may not be required. Examination not required in the online exam. Investigation have a smart approach. Clinical management have a smart approach. The skeleton has to be put up. Checked understanding in between. You tell, okay, these are the lifestyle changes, all these things. Am I clear so far? She'll tell, yes, doctor. Okay, this is the medical line of management. These medicines are given and this is going to act in this way. Am I clear with this? She'll tell, okay. Okay, the next one is third, this. Am I clear with this? So at every step, you're explaining and you're asking whether she understood. Check understanding. Give information in chunks and check understanding in between. And remember to involve the seniors, the juniors, or whatever the entire team who are there because you are ST5. Remember to involve the MDT. Remember to put up your clinical governance. This is for all your stations, all. Patient information leaflets, support groups, writing back to GP with the permission. If you get a letter from GP, you should write back to the GP with asking a permission, like, okay, with your permission, I'll be writing back to your GP about what we discussed today. Is that okay? Sometimes she may tell, no, doctor, I don't want my GP to know about this. So she wants something to be confidential. So it all depends. MDT approach, the consultant involvement, very important. I would suggest if you're involving your consultant, a specialist nurse, and a counselor in all your stations also, it wouldn't do any harm. 24/7 numbers wherever applicable, follow up, care plan, red flag signs. She's post-op, she's going home. You're telling her that, okay, if you feel unwell, do get back to us. If you feel some vaginal discharge or foul smell discharge, feel unwell or have some fever, pain in your tummy, excessive bleeding, all these are the red flag signs, which are warning signs. She has to come back to hospital. So follow-up care plan has to be written very nicely. Next appointment when you're giving, that should be mentioned. So all these things are going to complete your station. So now it's going to be, we are taking it that May exam could be an Osler system only. So you have 14 stations and you have to perform the best in each one of your station. Each station is different from one another. You have to give your best in each station separately. Have a smart approach to them, and I'll teach you regarding how to go ahead with that. How to pass each station separately and in a smart way. Hard work is required. Along with that, the dedication, the efforts, and help and support from us, we mentors. That is also important. Be confident in your part 3 and have a smart approach and apply knowledge from what you have learned from your part 2, but in a clinically, in that manner, you're going to apply the knowledge. Practice with a strict study partner. Make sure you have a partner. If you don't have, that is still fine. At least you can practice with a family member. If you don't have anybody, like they are not free, then fine, catch hold of some friend. If not, your patients, they are the best role players. So currently, like even till date, I follow all this template in my OPD and I'm just like quickly going on asking. So follow the template with your role players. Keep practicing that. Your OPD also gets over very quickly. Now, wherever there are nurses or midwives, somebody, use them for teaching stations. You teach them certain skills. You want to show forceps and teach. 10 minutes and your station is done. You can practice in front of mirror and look into your expressions. Does this look okay for your role player or not? Are you supposed to control this kind of expression? Are you supposed to control the movements of your hands or fingers, something that you're doing, correcting of hair or something? So all these things should be like, you have to make sure the body language is correct. If not, we mentors, we do provide one-to-one stations. So if you want to practice with one of the mentors like us, so anybody, like we are open for one-to-one stations also. Never get exhausted during the preparation time. Try to enjoy. We have done like part 3 exam. My when I gave part 2, my daughter was like 4.5 months. Second one, the first one was a toddler. Second one was 4.5 months. When she came for the part 3, she was hardly 7 months. I gave immediately after July 2019. I gave it in the November 2019 and I cleared. And I started preparing the day I booked my exam. So I had approximately 6 to 7 weeks. That's it. 6 weeks, you can say. I started off with the PILs to begin with. If I can do, then all of you can do. Definitely. My other like student of mine, she has given the exam 3 days post her delivery. So she has cleared the exam. I am so proud of her because 3 days post delivery, she's sitting, she's giving exam and she's clearing that. I was supposed to take a free circuit for her. She was a part of the course group where we had provided all the free circuits. So she was due for the free circuit the next day. The previous day, she called me and she told me I'm getting admitted because I'm getting labor pains and I'm there in the hospital. And I'm so proud of her that within 3 days she had her exam, she delivered, she gave the exam and she cleared. That should be the dedication. Never get exhausted. Enjoy this preparatory phase. All of us have commitments. My other candidate, she worked even the previous day because she said like being at workplace give me some like I'm free from tension. I'm relaxed. My mind doesn't think only of exam. Till the previous day she has worked, she has given the exam, she has cleared. So it all depends upon your priority. Do not change your lifestyle too much for exam. Enjoy the preparatory phase. Keep working, keep spending time with family, and make sure whatever resources, mentors, the materials, everything is there. Make sure best you're taking the best out of that. Towards the exam, that time, yes, practice more of the mock circuits, 7, 10, 14, something like that, at least 3 times so that you build up your stamina. During exam, if you feel you need to take off some work, like 1 week, 15 days, something, then you think about that. Family commitments, you can ask for some help. Practice reading fast and writing down or typing the points. Especially online, please keep practice of typing your key points. Practice reading very quickly. The books are there, the practice books. So we are going to solve all the practice books also in the course group. So you are supposed to read that task within 2 minutes. You have to finish reading the entire task. If not, cut short it to 1.5 minutes and try to read entire thing. There are basically books like your Lisa Joel, that is through the RCOG, that is a must. Justin Konje is a beautiful book. It was not there during my time, but now after that, when I'm going through for the teaching purpose, it's really wonderful. There's Get Through book. There is Oxford, Beautiful Stations. Then there is 50 Clinical Task. There is Richa Saxena. There is Tony. So all these books, all the 7 books you can go through, but priority wise, we'll be doing that in the groups again. So it is very important that you read your station within 2 minutes and then you perform and try to complete your task in 9 minutes. Have a perfect, fluent, confident beginning and an impressive ending. When I went to my stations and I used to introduce myself, be it a examiner station, and the way I used to introduce and tell, I knew that I'm going to pass the station. There was a smile on the examiner. By the time I completed, they were nodding to all those things. And I decided, okay, however good or bad I perform in my previous task, I will not allow that to affect my next task. It's done and dusted. The next task is entirely a fresh one. I'm going with the fresh mind. The previous task was good, fine. The previous task was bad, fine. But my next task is going to be always better than the previous one. My role players, they were all like smiling. There was a patient where she had come with the talipus of foot and she was asking for termination. I counseled her later. I gave her the options. I told her what are the treatment options, what are there, and ultimately I said like you're the decision maker, so she has to take things forward from here. What I can do is I can help you out with all the information that I have. And she was smiling. I was like, okay, be in your role, and you're supposed to be like sad or something. But she was with all smiles, and I was like, fine. I am done with this. So at the end, I knew that this role play of mine, she was satisfied. Do you need to pass all stations to clear? No, dear. It is not an individual station. It is going to be the global marking. All the domains are going to be marked. If you're passed amongst, like, there are 14 stations, you have passed like 12 stations in the patient safety and 2 stations were plus minus in your patient safety, you will still pass the patient safety domain. Okay, it's not the individual station, it is the domain that is going to be judged. If you have, out of 14, your knowledge was okay, it was borderline, then few station it was pass, few it was borderline, you may still not be able to reach the expected standards in the applied clinical knowledge. The other 4 domains you have passed, but still applied clinical knowledge you did not reach the expected standard, but still you will clear the exam if you have crossed the percentage, if you have passed important domains like your safety and your communication and all, but some compromise was there on the applied clinical knowledge, but still you can pass the exam if you cross the percentage and you have cleared the important domains over there, but one domain was still not reached up to expected standard, it is still okay. So it is going to be a global marking. It is not an individual station. It is going to be the domains that you are going to pass. Okay. Now let's start the journey together. So what I have to offer for all of you. So we have come up with a comprehensive course. There are till now the batches which we were running was the regular batches, which contains of the 15 sessions, live sessions. Then there is something called as a mixed bag, which we introduced in the February, and it was a huge success. All the students, they like that mixed bag approach. So it was like a quick station. We are giving a station, and in 5 minutes you're supposed to present. So it was a mixed bag station. So we covered totally 150 stations amongst all these 20 sessions. 15 of the regular sessions where 90 were covered, and then we had the mixed bag of 5 where 12 stations were discussed each day, and it was very close to exam. It had all recalls. It was so beneficial to all the students that they just have to brush up. Within 5 minutes, your all senses are alert and you're just speaking out your heart out and you're telling, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this. So that was a very quick kind of a station where the candidates had performed, and they performed really well. That was close to the exam. That was a mixed bag sessions. The next one was the marathon where I presented 100 stations. I told the approach. I solved all the 100 station, 100 recalls for them. This basically had an approach for the people who had not opted for the course, but they wanted to do the revision with me. So me as a mentor, I was teaching the students. It was not like they are performing, but I am teaching. I am doing the revision for y'all. So I did the revision of 100 recalls for my students. All they had to do is relax, sit back, listen to me. I'm telling all the dialogues, I'm telling all the management, I'm telling everything to them. That station, everything I'm telling to them. I am doing the revision for you people. So 5 days, 6 days we had taken. So it was like almost 3.5 hours every day. And 100 station, 100 recalls were solved. This was close to the exam, which helped in quick revision for my students. And then we had offered the circuit, individual circuit, 14 station in one go. Each candidate had to perform 14 stations in one go. So we at RAISE, we decided, why not give a comprehensive course now? Let us start preparing the fresh candidate in a stepwise manner. So step 1 is going to be the comprehensive, which contains all the 15 live sessions, which will cover all the 90 with the detailed explanation. I take only 6 candidates, 6 active participants in one batch because every candidate gets a chance to present in my session. Every candidate, every session. So live session, each candidate is presenting one station. We cover 6 stations. This takes about 3 to 3.5 hours. This, most of the time I have seen no other courses, they promise this. Every candidate in every station. This is going to be very essential for a beginner because it is going to help you practice speaking. This is not about listening. The beginning is with speaking. You have to come out. You have to speak sentences. Otherwise, you will not speak in an exam. So these 15 live sessions are going to train you to speak. This is the time where we are going to mold you. We are going to fine tune everything because we want you to be perfect in your exam. There is a Telegram course group which is created, and you can see with all the feedbacks, we are solving all the practice books. There are unlimited tasks. So each and when, as and when they are presenting, we will keep on adding the next task to them. They present the station, we give them the feedback, and then the next station goes. So already there are the one course which has already started. They have almost completed 2 books now. The Lisa is complete. The Justin Konji is about to complete for that batch. The next batch is almost like they are done with the Lisa. So we have started off with the Justin Konji. They have not yet started with their live session. So we are going to start it next week. So currently we do the Telegram course where we are making them practice each and every day. Sometimes they may not be able to submit their task. It may take 1 or 2 days, depending upon their work schedule. So, but as soon as they're submitting, we are making sure at least we mentors, we give them the feedback, we fine tune them. Then next station improvises again. So, why this is important? Speaking is important. So, in the course, we are doing the practice books on a regular basis and unlimited. How many ever you want to do practice daily? Put up a station daily. You want to practice once in 2 days? Fine, if you're okay with that. Next one is about a concised. This is having all the mixed bag modules where 5 sessions covering 60 station. It is going to be a very quick kind of a revision. 3 hours, we are dealing 12 stations. Candidate practices how to cover the management of each station in a rapid way. Your thought process is going to work. And then again, we are continuing with the Telegram practice books again. And there is a special recall group which is created by Recall Warriors where they are practicing only recalls apart from the regular live session, apart from the books which are being solved in the course group. There is another Telegram group where we are solving only recalls. Till now, the February batch was solving. From now onwards, the May batch is going to solve. So come up and start solving the recall. And all the people who are registered with the course, they get by default added to the recall group. There is no separate payment for that. So by default, they are a part of my recall group. What about the Swift session? This is what I am going to do for you people. I am going to sit and revise stations for y'all. 2 weeks before, I will make sure that these 5 to 6 days, I am going to cover 100 stations for y'all. You have to just give me your time, 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours in a day. Just 5 days to 6 days, I am going to sit and solve stations for you. I am going to do the revision for you. You have to just sit and listen. Candidates do not have to do revision. What about the step 4? Once you have done with all this, you can give a free mock circuit of 14 station individual performance. You're not going to club with any other person. So you are going to perform 14 stations in one go. You'll have a real exam-like approach with all the timers and all. A detailed feedback and the fine-tuning will be told to you how to go ahead with this. This can be decided by the candidates and the mentors, the availability and the time they want to have their circuit. Because some may prefer weekdays, some may prefer weekends and morning hours, night hours. I've taken circuits even up to 5 in the morning. So Indian Standard Time in the 5 in the morning where a UK candidate was performing and here it was going ahead for me. So we had to do some modification because the students had to be prepared. So all these 4-step approach, the comprehensive approach is going to be there. It is going to be best for the beginners with stepwise complete preparation. So right now the course we have slashed it 28,000 downwards. So 1.18 was slashed to 90,000. So currently we are enrolling. The voice library has more than 300 solved stations already. These are being arranged module wise. The practice books are also being solved. They are being arranged module wise. Recalls are being solved and they are being arranged year wise. Salt stations, you get the PDF that are also more than 100 plus, where you have to sit and only read the PDF also. What else do we provide? The course group for unlimited task, free access to the recalls, study materials, and complete library access. And I guess nobody else is offering all these things together. And everything that you want from a complete course, we are there to provide you. There are 2 batches which are being started. One is targeting May 2022. The other one will be targeting November 2022. The people who are going to get enrolled in the November batch, they are going to have weekly 1 session. People enrolling for the May batch, they'll have at least like weekly 2 session, because we have to hurry up with that. So it depends whether you're going to choose a 8 weeks duration or a 20 weeks course. This depends upon what batch you're selecting. And the details, as I said before, so whoever wants to enroll, you can start off with that. Next week onwards, we are starting the courses, and choose your authentic course and choose the authentic mentors, and make sure that whatever the materials or whatever the course or the mentors they are there, they're all authentic. The regular course, apart from this, what we provide is a 3 monthly course. It has only the live sessions 15 and plus the other benefits which I told before. Marathon course separately, if somebody wants to purchase also, they can do it, but it will be close to the exam 2 weeks prior. So it won't be happening now. So only 2 weeks prior to the exam, I conduct this marathon course. Circuit courses, individual one-to-one stations with the mentors, anytime any person can purchase. So if you want that approach, you can have that also. So knowing your mentor. So this is me during my convocation, the best feeling ever when I had been there. Everybody, like once we are receiving the degrees, all the dignitaries, they went out, they were standing in 2 lines outside, and we candidates, we are supposed to walk in between them, and we were headed towards the hall upstairs. So they were loudly clapping and hooting for us, and it was such a great feeling that day. I want all of you with this photograph. You're going to share that with me. Because of COVID pandemic and other things, the graduation ceremony was withheld for some reasons and all, so they couldn't do it. But I had a good opportunity to go there and get this degree there itself. So a wonderful feeling, and I want all of you to get this degree. If possible, please do attend the convocation and get your degree. This is Dr. Geetika. She's from Delhi. She's another chief mentor for the course. Dr. Siddesh is from Mumbai, and he'll be taking the Urogyne modules. Dr. Rupali, she is working at NHS system, so she'll be covering the clinical governance aspect. And I am Dr. Rashmi Patil from Bengaluru. So any other doubts, anything further that you have any doubts, please do let us know. Raise Academy is my dream venture, and we are a registered company in India. And whatever, any doubts, anything regarding the course, any help that you want, anytime in the free group, in the course group, do let us know. We're all there to help you all. Any doubts anybody has? I hope everything is clear, dears. Thank you so much for joining in. If any doubts, anything that you have, please let me know. Thank you so much. Take care. Good night. Thank you, dears. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye. Take care.